Imagine standing on the edge of a newly cleared commercial job site. You know, the grading is done, the permits are finally in hand, and you were just completely ready to pour the foundation.
Oh, it's the best feeling.
Exactly. But instead of a fleet of cement trucks pulling up, a giant flashing neon sign descends from the sky with a dollar amount on it. $100 million.
Yeah, that's intense.
Yeah. And that is essentially what BlackRock, the absolute titan of institutional capital, just dropped onto the construction industry's doorstep. But they aren't buying steel and they aren't buying concrete. They're betting $100 million entirely on people.
It's just a staggering amount of money. I mean, when the world's largest asset manager makes a move like that, it signals a massive shift in how the highest levels of finance view the physical world.
Oh, absolutely.
They've basically realized that $1 billion skyscraper or, a massive infrastructure portfolio is functionally just a really expensive paperweight if there are no boots on the ground to actually swing the hammers.
Right.
Like to run the conduit and weld the joints. Capital alone cannot build anything.
And if you own a construction business, if you are out there trying to build a scaling legend out of your company, you know exactly why they're making that bet. And that's our mission for this deep dive.
Yeah, we're getting right into it.
We are talking directly to you, the builders, the contractors, the business owners. We're going to navigate this chaotic current market from crippling project delays all the way to the massive wave of venture capital trying to fix it.
Because you really have to figure out how to position your company to survive and scale in this environment.
Exactly. Because the baseline reality right now is incredibly rough. In fact, according to Smart Business Automator's Market Intelligence Report, we are seeing a compounding crisis of delays.
It's bad.
2/3 of contractors are reporting at least one project delayed, postponed, or canceled within the last 6 months alone.
Which just completely vaporizes a contractor's profit margin.
Oh, yeah.
Especially when you factor in the carrying costs of construction loans over those extended timelines, it's brutal.
Okay, let's unpack this. BlackRock is launching what they call the Future Builders Initiative. It's $100 million designed to train 50,000 workers over the next 5 years.
Right. Specifically targeting fields like electrical, HVAC, plumbing, and ironwork.
But why is a Wall Street giant suddenly acting like a vocational trade school?
Well, because they're looking at the exact same macroeconomic warning lights that construction owners see every single day on the job site. Right now, construction wages are hitting $40.55 an hour on average.
Wow.
Yeah, which is up 3.8% year over year. And average weekly earnings in the trades are sitting at $1,590. That is a full 25% above the private sector average.
25%, that's insane.
It really is. So BlackRock is looking at their investments and realizing the labor shortage isn't just a human resources complaint anymore. It is the defining operational crisis of our time.
And it's having a severe mechanical impact on daily operations. I mean, the numbers back up the pain you feel on the site. 92% of firms simply cannot find qualified workers.
92%. Almost everyone.
Right. And 45% of contractors explicitly cite this labor shortage as the direct primary cause of their project delays. We're at a point where a standard 18-month commercial project is routinely stretching out to 24 months or more.
Yeah, it's basically the new normal.
And overall construction planning just slipped for the second straight month, according to Dodge data.
What's fascinating here is the underlying mechanism of how these delays actually play out in the dirt. It is never just one single delay. It's a compounding friction that just destroys the critical path.
How so?
Well, let's say a labor shortage on a framing crew pushes their finish date back by just 3 days. That doesn't just make you 3 days late. That triggers a material delivery delay because you physically have nowhere to stage the drywall.
Oh, man. Right.
And because the drywall isn't up, you miss your original rough-in inspection window with the city. And since city inspectors are booked out for weeks, you're suddenly waiting another 14 days just to get back on the schedule.
It's a domino effect.
Exactly. By the time the inspector arrives, you're paying your crews time and a half overtime just to claw back a few lost days, which drains the budget, exhausts the workers, and ultimately leads to rushed work and quality failures.
It's exactly like a multi-car pileup on the highway.
Yes.
One minor fender bender 5 miles ahead causes a massive wave of braking, and suddenly thousands of people are an hour late to work. You miss one concrete pour window and your entire schedule is shattered.
Totally shattered.
But I have to push back here. If wages are 25% above the private sector average and weekly earnings are so incredibly strong, why is it still so hard to attract talent? Like, shouldn't a $40 an hour average be drawing people in droves?
I mean, in a normal balanced market, yes, but we aren't in a normal market right now. We are in the era of the mega project, which creates this highly distorted K-shaped reality for the industry. While the overall supply of labor might be growing slightly, the demand from massive, hyper-complex infrastructure projects is acting like a giant vacuum.
Just sucking up all the talent.
Yes, exactly. They're taking all the available talent in a region and leaving everyday commercial and residential builders basically starving for crews.
When you say a K-shaped reality, you mean the literal shape of the letter K, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Like the top arm is pointing up, representing the massive firms and specialized contractors who are flush with cash and winning these mega projects, and the bottom arm is pointing down, representing the smaller regional builders who are struggling to survive because they have to compete against those giants for the exact same labor pool.
Precisely. And the scale of these mega projects is almost hard to wrap your head around. There is $1 trillion in data center spending projected over the next 5 years alone.
$1 trillion.
Yes.
Yeah.
We're talking about 446 new North American data centers planned by 2030.
And these aren't just, large air-conditioned rooms for standard computer servers anymore. The power density in these new data centers is jumping from 100 kilowatts per rack to potentially 600 kilowatts per rack.
Yeah, right.
For anyone not building these, what does 600 kilowatts per rack physically mean for the construction requirements?
It changes the entire physical makeup of the building. When a server rack runs at 600 kilowatts, primarily to support advanced artificial intelligence processing, it generates an enormous amount of heat.
Obviously.
So you aren't just running standard electrical conduit anymore. You're installing massive, specialized liquid cooling infrastructure. You need incredibly thick copper routing, complex heat exchange systems, and heavy structural reinforcement just to hold the weight of all that cooling equipment.
So you need top-tier talent for that.
Exactly. You need elite pipe fitters, highly specialized commercial plumbers, and master electricians.
Which explains why we're literally seeing large engineering firms pull elite electricians off of traditional construction crews just so they can sit in an office and do electrical design work for data centers.
Yeah, it's wild.
There simply aren't enough electrical engineers to go around, so they are just poaching the field talent.
Exactly. And it's not just data centers doing the poaching either. Look at the CSL Behring plant expansion in Illinois. That's a $1.5 billion project bringing 800 construction jobs to one single site.
Right.
Or look at the Skanska joint venture replacing the Vincent Thomas Bridge deck in Los Angeles. That's for $534 million. When a massive bridge repair or a billion-dollar pharmaceutical plant or even the federal government allocating $100 million for World Cup public transit drops into a city, it fundamentally alters the local labor economics.
Because the guy trying to build a local strip mall or like a 50-unit apartment complex suddenly finds that his framing crew or his plumbing subcontractor just got poached for $5 more an hour by the billion-dollar project down the highway.
That is exactly the mechanism. A single mega project artificially inflates wages and timelines for every other builder in a 50-mile radius.
So you're already losing your best electricians and pipe fitters to the data center down the street. But even if you manage to staff your crew, you might not be able to put them to work anyway because you're suddenly hit with regulatory hurdles or global supply chain breaks.
Right, the invisible roadblocks.
It feels like every time you solve a physical problem on the site, a new invisible problem arrives in the mail from the government or from overseas.
And that introduces a profound level of schedule volatility that you really just cannot outwork.
Let's talk about those invisible hurdles. On the regulatory side, the Army Corps of Engineers has their 2026 nationwide permits taking effect on March 15th.
Right.
That is 57 reissued permits impacting essentially any construction project that touches U.S. waters or wetlands. On top of that, federal Buy America compliance rules are now adding anywhere from 2 to 5 months to federal project timelines just to verify material sourcing.
2 to 5 months, just for verification.
Exactly. And at the state level, the policy landscape is shifting so rapidly it's hard to track. West Virginia is advancing an E-Verify bill that would require all businesses and subcontractors to use the federal system for state-funded work, which the ACLU is currently opposing.
Yeah, and Ohio has a similar mandate hitting this month, too.
Right. We even saw a federal court completely pause the construction of a Maryland ICE detention facility with a temporary restraining order. Now, to be absolutely clear, regardless of where anyone stands politically on immigration or federal infrastructure policy for a business owner, they all represent the exact same thing.
Project uncertainty.
Yes, project uncertainty.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, all of this geopolitical friction and local regulatory red tape acts as a hidden tax. It's a tax on a contractor's time, their schedule, and their mental bandwidth.
Absolutely.
If you have a crew ready to pour concrete, but an Army Corps permit is delayed in an administrative office somewhere, your site physically stops, and the global supply chain is suffering from the exact same volatility.
So how does a global supply chain issue actually impact a local builder's daily site?
Well, let's look at the closure of the Strait of Hormuz in the Middle East. Right now, that geopolitical conflict is reshaping the entire global softwood lumber trade.
Wait, how does that connect to lumber?
Because shipping vessels want to avoid conflict zones, right? So Nordic lumber producers are having to redirect their cargo volumes entirely around Africa instead of cutting through the Red Sea.
Oh, wow.
That longer route burns more fuel and takes weeks longer. Simultaneously, the shipping disruption caused European gas prices to surge. So the Nordic lumber mills are suddenly paying massively higher energy costs just to run their saws and kilns.
I see the connection now. A geopolitical event thousands of miles away forces a ship to reroute, which spikes energy costs, which raises the operational cost of the mill, which means that framing lumber eventually gets slapped with a 15% surcharge by the time it reaches a local lumberyard in the U.S.
Precisely. It eventually shows up as a margin hit on a framing contractor's ledger.
Which brings up a really visceral question for you listening right now. If the physical act of erecting a building only takes 12 months, where are the other 12 months of your project timeline actually going?
Right.
Like, how much of your time is spent waiting for permits, waiting for compliance approvals, or waiting for a delayed lumber shipment to navigate a redirected global supply chain?
It has to be maddening for business owners. But humans are ingenious. When physical constraints become too tight, we innovate. Since contractors cannot magically print more workers, and they certainly can't bypass global shipping choke points or rewrite federal regulations, they're adapting.
They have to.
Yeah, they're turning to technology to ruthlessly eliminate friction from the things they actually can control.
And the venture capital world definitely knows this. Looking at Smart Business Automator's market intelligence report, we see exactly where the smart money is flowing. A staggering $126 million just poured into 6 different construction tech startups.
That's a lot of capital.
It is. Investors aren't guessing. They're following the exact demand signals that contractors are screaming into search engines. Just this month alone, searches for construction safety management software spiked by 450%.
Because safety incidents cause stop work orders cause delays, and delays ruin margins. So how exactly is that $126 million being deployed to fix these pain points?
Well, it's going to companies building what acts as a digital site superintendent that never sleeps. You've got Filed, a London-based company. They just raised $41 million for AI safety monitoring.
Okay, yeah.
Sincera took in $27 million for job site reality capture. Then you have XBuild, which is fascinating. They're building an estimating platform using what they call vibe coding across concrete, HVAC, and painting.
Oh, vibe coding. That's interesting.
Right. And Moab raised $16 million to build an operating system specifically for the construction equipment rental industry. Para secured $15 million to modernize B2B payments and accounts receivable for suppliers. And Worley is deploying a massive AI knowledge platform to help industrial clients retrieve design decisions and lessons learned from past projects.
Let's break down the actual mechanisms of a few of those, because the jargon can get overwhelming really fast.
Yeah.
Take vibe coding, for instance. What that physically means on a job site is that instead of a project manager sitting in a trailer manually typing complex formulas into an estimating spreadsheet for hours, they can just talk to the AI in plain English.
Just speak to it normally.
Yeah. They describe the parameters of the concrete pour, and the AI generates the estimate. It removes the friction of manual takeoffs completely.
Wow. And what about reality capture for safety? How does AI prevent an OSHA violation?
Well, Sincera isn't just taking passive photos of the site. It's using cameras to constantly map the physical environment and run it against safety parameters. The AI can literally flag a missing guardrail on a third-floor balcony. or identify a worker not wearing a harness, and alert the superintendent before an OSHA inspector ever sets foot on the property, preventing the fine and the delay.
That's huge. And Para, addressing B2B payments is massive too. I mean, anyone in construction knows the physical pain of net 60 or net 90 payment terms.
Oh, the worst.
You're constantly chasing lien waivers, tracking down supplier invoices, and floating cash just to keep materials moving. Automating that payment flow directly addresses the carrying costs we talked about earlier.
Exactly.
Notice what all of these contech companies have in common. They aren't trying to build a robot that swings a hammer. They're addressing safety, estimation, equipment rentals, and payments. AI isn't replacing the builder. It is replacing the administrative bloat that keeps the builder off the site.
Right. The technology is designed to process the paperwork, analyze the risk, and chase down the invoices so the human talent can actually focus on manipulating the physical environment.
It's like giving your crew a digital exoskeleton. If you literally cannot hire 10 people because the local labor pool has been emptied by a data center project, you don't just give up. You give the 5 people. You do have the technological tools to safely and efficiently manage the workload of 10.
You augment them.
Exactly, you augment them. But software can only optimize a process so much. Eventually, you still have to pour the concrete and frame the walls. And that brings us to the hardware evolution, which is being forced to change due to these exact same labor and cost pressures.
Yeah, we're seeing a real evolution in the physical methods of construction, and it's playing out on a global stage. The pressures we're feeling in the US are forcing adaptations worldwide.
Wait, when you say a hardware evolution, you mean fundamentally changing how a building goes up? Like Icon launching their Titan 3D printer for commercial construction?
Yes, exactly.
Now, when I hear 3D printer, I picture like a desktop toy making plastic widgets. How does a machine print a multi-story commercial building? And how does that actually save a contractor money?
Well, the Titan isn't a toy. It's an industrial machine that prints specialized cementitious material up to 35 feet tall.
35 feet.
Yeah. And how does it save money? By eliminating multiple distinct steps in the construction process. When you 3D print a wall system, you are simultaneously creating the structure, the exterior sheathing, the insulation cavity, and the interior finish in one continuous motion.
Oh, wow.
You're completely removing the framing crew, the insulation crew, and the drywall crew from that specific wall assembly.
Which means you don't have to wait for 3 different subcontractors to align their schedules.
Exactly.
The operational cost of this printer is sitting at $20 per square foot, which is roughly 40% cheaper than traditional construction methods. And commercial deliveries start in 2027. We are watching 3D printing graduate from a cool YouTube novelty to an accessible, margin-saving construction method.
It's happening fast.
And when you look globally, you see why these physical efficiencies are becoming mandatory. In Canada, the housing market is facing a severe contraction, with housing starts forecast to fall to 247,000 by 2026.
Yeah, and Ontario hitting 2-decade lows.
Right. But contrast that contraction with what is happening in the United Kingdom. The UK construction market actually grew by 1.1% recently, despite experiencing a massive wave of nearly 4,000 insolvencies.
That's a huge wave of bankruptcies.
It is. So how does an industry manage to grow while bankruptcies simultaneously spike? Because the weak firms died and the strong survivors absorbed their market share and grew.
Yeah.
We're seeing Germany's Goldbeck exporting highly industrialized, factory-built precision housing across borders into the UK just to meet this consolidated demand. And in Australia, they just released a 10-year infrastructure priority list, explicitly citing physical material supply as their absolute largest non-labor risk.
Yeah, the global trends are clear.
So what does this all mean for the listener? If you are a mid-sized commercial contractor in Texas or Ohio, why should you care that the UK market is consolidating or that Australia is panicking over materials? How do we connect those global macroeconomic dots to the local job site?
This raises an important question, because what is happening in the UK and Canada right now is a crystal ball for your local market. We are entering what I call a survivor economy.
As far as economy.
Yeah. The firms in the UK that went bankrupt weren't necessarily the ones doing bad carpentry or pouring bad concrete. They were the ones who couldn't adapt their supply chains fast enough to handle the friction.
Right.
The contractors who survive the next 5 years will be the ones who adapt to these new physical realities. The builders who figure out how to integrate 3D printing to bypass drywall shortages, or utilize factory-built precision components to bypass weather delays, or deploy AI to manage their administrative bloat. They're the ones who will weather the labor crunch.
They have to be adaptable.
Exactly. And more than just survive, they will absorb the contracts and the market share of the legacy builders who refuse to evolve.
It really is an adapt or die reality for the industry. So to recap the massive journey we've been on today, we started with BlackRock making a $100 million bet that skilled trades are the ultimate bottleneck of the global economy. We explored the actual mechanics of how compounding project delays are stretching 18-month builds into 2-year nightmares because of missed inspection windows. We looked at the K-shaped economy, where trillion-dollar data centers requiring 600-kilowatt cooling systems are vacuuming up local talent.
Just pulling everyone off the local sites.
Right. We unpacked how regulatory hurdles and shipping reroutes around the Horn of Africa act as a hidden tax on your timeline. And finally, we saw how hundreds of millions of venture capital dollars are flowing into contech and 3D printing to give your smaller crews the digital exoskeletons they need to fight back.
The tools are changing, the capital is shifting, but the fundamental human need to build remains. Which leaves us with a critical thought to ponder as you look at your own workforce strategy over the next 5 years.
Yeah.
As the power densities in these data centers skyrocket, requiring complex liquid cooling, and as AI takes over the administrative management of the job site, what will the elite tradesperson of the next decade actually look like? Will they resemble the traditional builder we've known for the last century, or will they need to be a highly specialized systems engineer wearing a hard hat?
That is the $100 million question sitting right on the foundation. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the construction industry and want to cut through the noise, please subscribe, rate, review, and share this with your team. And to see how you can scale your own construction business without drowning in paperwork, visit smartbusinessautomator.com. Keep your hard hats on, keep building, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.